thank you very much for having me. I hope this was useful to you. The slides are already here if you want to have a look at them. So on bit.ly/y-contribute, and I'm happy to take questions. Jim, I hope that I actually sort of addressed your question about more data. We don't have a lot of data that shows concretely the benefits. Frank Nagel's research is one of the rare papers I've seen that's so compelling on that effect. And I'd really love to see more here. It would make my life easier for sure.
Tobie, sorry to jump in here. What I would say is, too, if anyone watching and that has joined us, if you're aware of any papers, any research, any data that might be available, share it with a group. Send it to us. You can send it to us, maybe a link or some reference to info@allthingsopen.org. We'll share it out. Again, post Meetup, post this event, we'll send out information to everybody. We'll include a link to the recording so you can watch it again. We'll include a link, Tobie, to your slides. And if you want to share your slides with us, you're welcome to. And we can send out a link on our SlideShare account as well. We can post those. What we'll also do is we'll include links out to resources that have been referenced, meaning Vicky Braziler's book, Jono Bacon's book. Also, I do want to say, Tobie, one of the books that you referenced early in your presentation, the reason I stepped away was it's actually Jeffrey Moore's Crossing the Chasm.
It is.
And I've read it. You can see I've got my notes here. And I think it's a must read for anybody in technology that wants to understand technology adoption. It's really fascinating, and it's so applicable not just to technology, but to other areas of life and other areas of commerce and business as well. I think it's I think it's a modern classic. I think it's an unbelievably applicable and relevant book. So I wanted to go get my copy while I was on the call.
That's why you ran off. I was wondering. I saw that.
It is. As soon as you started referencing early adopters and everything, I said, "Oh my gosh, this is a fantastic book." So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great framework to think about these issues and sort of see how companies move in that space, and also sort of see where there's a huge benefit for companies that want to be to innovate in that space and actually really grab the competitive advantage before the other ones do. Is sit in that place where there's not that many people yet. So really, for me, that's one of the arguments for building a really strong open source culture, because you're not getting a competitive advantage by relying on open source anymore, right? Everyone does that.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So to Jim Bowring's again question, and Jim stated that he had to step away, so he couldn't jump in and kind of raise his hand and directly participate. But the answer to the question is, we're on the lookout for more statistics and more studies and more data. I'm aware of maybe a couple, I think, that I will share again post-event. And then if anyone listening to this is aware of any more, we would love to share those references and resources with our community, because I know this would be extremely beneficial. And if anyone is interested in starting a study, maybe even getting something started, but might be looking for some support, some help, some ideas, please let us know. We're more than happy to help you out. I think it would be well worth your effort.
Yeah, likewise, I'd love to help with that.
Yep. And then I think there was a couple other questions. I think Mark Hutchinson, if Mark's still on, Tobie, if you want to take it. Let's see. I think Mark, he asked a question about, he said he'd like to hear more about maybe not being quite so opportunistic. I'm not quite sure if Mark's still on, if he wants to elaborate on that question, if he means, perhaps, I don't mean to speak for Mark in any way, but kind of going back to the early days, it really was about, contributing, getting really nothing out of it. You want to see, at least that was the perception. And then it's maybe kind of transitioned a little bit to, no, actually there's a benefit and you should get something out of it. And I'm not sure if that is what he means by being quote unquote opportunistic or not. Maybe I'm butchering his question. I hope I'm not, but if I am, I certainly apologize.
Yeah, I was wondering if that wasn't also maybe going back to the point where I said specifically about companies trying to be opportunistic, using open source in a way to really benefit, but not be part of the community and not be really involved and just try to take out all of what they could, right? So I'm not sure which of these two different ones. Let me try to address them both separately. If we're talking about open source in general, and you know, a shift from like the early days and sort of the ethos around open source to this much more mainstream, much more business driven to some degree outlook on open source. I mean, you know, anyone that's been there for a while will have some form of nostalgia and regret for those earlier days. But at the same time, it's sort of part of the normal arc of something becoming mainstream. As more people get to see the benefits, as more people want to see the benefits, as more people want to participate in this community, obviously you will see all of the, you know, some more clearly opportunistic behavior, or let's say some more organized behavior, right? I didn't start open source with the hope of making a career out of it. That happened completely accidentally, right? But it was way easier back then than it is today. You know, if you take JavaScript, like when I was first involved with JavaScript, for example, like, you know, I became one of the best JavaScript developers in the world really quickly, because there was no competition at all, right? If you compare that to today, there are literally, I mean, probably 1 million JavaScript developers, 95% of whom are much better than I am at this point, right? So, you know, given that, if you actually want to sort of leverage the same benefits, you have to be sort of more organized and more intentional about it, I believe. Now, the other aspect is about precisely participating in the open source community as a company, and trying just to grab what's useful and not being part of it, not being really involved with it. I think this gets really obvious to people outside, and when you do that, you actually don't really reap the benefits, right? It just feels like that's what you're doing. But if you're being involved just to get what you want out of it, and not have the project in mind, for example, or the overall community in mind, it shows really quickly, and it backfires. So I think that's really what I want to say about this is, if you're doing it, do it for the right reasons, even if those reasons are sort of like underlined by strategic benefits, right? It's still, those two are compatible. Those are hard questions. I'm sorry. I'm trying to give them like my best shot, but they're hard questions to answer.
Okay. Are there any other any other questions? There was actually one for me in the chat stream, and it was, I think, from Jerry, and he's asking, why aren't we using an open source alternative to Zoom? Which is a really great question. I'm in the process of answering that right now. So Jerry, the answer is on the way. Very short answer to that is we've looked at open source alternatives. They definitely exist. You might see a change in the format and the platform that we use coming very soon. We'll make an announcement about that. But in the short term, when we were kind of, I'll say, kind of thrown into having to host more virtual events, we have gravitated to a platform that I think most presenters are most familiar with. But you know, when someone joins us as a panelist and then presents, often there's not time to train up or look into a different platform, or maybe learn some different, maybe a different feature set specific to another platform. and people, again, they're very busy, so they kind of join us on the fly. And a lot of people are already familiar with Zoom. So I know that's not the best answer, but that's probably being, that's just being very transparent and very honest. Again, you might see some changes coming soon, but we've certainly investigated that and continue to look into open source alternatives to Zoom for sure. So, and again, I'll respond directly to you in chat as well. Tobie, sorry, I didn't mean to
No,
digress like that, but I at least
it's a
wanted
great
to
question.
address that. Yeah,
It's a great question.
it sure is.
It's not an easy question to answer because, again, like there are trade-offs.
Yeah, there are. Okay, so does anyone else have a question, Tobie? Are you seeing anything else on your end?
I'm not, but I must admit that I haven't looked through the whole
Yeah.
the whole chat. I don't see anything left in the Q&A.
I don't either.
But I don't think I'm seeing
Okay.
anything. And
well, we want to be as comprehensive as possible and try to address all the questions. Okay, so all of that being said, Tobie, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you very much for joining us today. I really appreciate that. Look, we love this stuff. We love this stuff. And it's so important to understand. And honestly, a lot of people don't understand it. And I don't mean that being negative. I'm not throwing off on anyone or being negative toward any individual. Our position is it really is important to understand what the value proposition here is and why companies and individual, at an individual level, why individuals who want to get involved. I mean, that is to us a starting point with a lot of everything else that follows. Once you understand what you talked about today, a lot more makes sense. Once you see Facebook and the React community and other companies, public statements and press announcements and press releases and acquisitions like Microsoft buying GitHub, once you understand what you talked about, seeing those press announcements suddenly make a lot more sense. You can make more sense of the world when you understand the topic of today's presentation.
It does. And, sort of going back to Mark's question there, being aware of why large corporations are investing strategically in open source is important, right? I mean, you can, to some degree, regret it or regret the old days, but I think that you also have to know what's going on and understand why companies are doing that today and why it's a tool like other tools, like other business tools, really, and not only the original ethos.
I agree. Okay, so in order for us to wrap up, I want to thank our sponsors again. These companies make this possible. Without them, we wouldn't really be able to do this. So again, IBM, Mattermost, and Ivan.io. Great companies. Again, truly appreciate it. I'm going to share my screen one last time. And I'm just going to, again, ask you to consider the Open Source 101 at Home event on May the 12th. Again, Tobie, you're speaking at that event. So if people tune in and register, they'll hear a version of this presentation, I think. I know you're going to change it up a little bit and maybe even hit on something, maybe tweak it just a bit. So they'll get a little different content. But again, 24 sessions presented by 20 world-class speakers, $19, and by all means, reach out to us for scholarships. We would love to have you participate. Quick update on All Things Open, still scheduled for October the 18th to the 20th. We're proceeding as with it being an in-person event, fully understanding that things could change at any moment. We may end up delivering a hybrid event or solely an in-person event, or even a virtual event if things take a turn for the worse and people just aren't able to travel, and cities don't open back up. So there are a lot of variables in play here. I'm going to show you the Ivan.io website again, and the Mattermost website as well, and then of course our friends at IBM, who just do an amazing job. They really, again, a great job, and they've been very supportive of us. I do want to thank them. With all that said, anyone interested in getting a hat, which I'm wearing, or an All Things Open shirt, send us an email, info@allthingsopen.org, and include your shipping address. It's sort of hard to ship you a hat and or a shirt and not know where to send it. So if you just include your shipping address, we would greatly appreciate that. A number of people did this after our last meetup, super successful, and I hope everyone has received their items in the mail. They should. And if you're still on, and if you haven't received what we sent you, and after you made the request, please let us know, and we're happy to ship it again. Okay. Any final questions before we go? I'm looking at the QA. Well, I do see one last, Tobie. I don't know if you want to take it. Anonymous engineering facilities services career.
I'm happy to do so if that
Yeah.
is fine on your side.
Well, sure. Do it quickly.
I
How about
will do it quickly.
that?
So the question is, I'm an engineering facility service carrier, and I have experience developing software tools that I use in my job. I want to transition into a software engineering job. What's the best way for me to leverage open source software commitment to work on my portfolio? The answer to that is pick something that you like, that you're good at, and that has high visibility, and see how you can make yourself useful and well-known in that community. And that will tremendously help.
Yeah, excellent. Well, again, to everybody with us and joined, thank you. You all know, you're at risk of me thanking you to death, but we truly do appreciate your time. I know it's midday here in the U.S., East Coast, and West Coast now. Now it's actually late, morning. But thanks to everyone. We'll have announcements coming up soon. And if you have any questions, by all means, please send those to info@ or contact us through Meetup if you want a shirt or if you just have general comments or anything. Tobie, thanks again. You're most gracious with your time.
Thank you very much for having me. I enjoyed this very much, and I'm looking forward to the presentation at 101.
Great,
really.
great.
Yep.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Tobie.